Fox News got really loud and really snippy. Brian Kilmeade and Lawrence Jones really went at it over the Uvalde, Texas police. For whatever reason, Lawrence Jones is kind of playing defense for them, for like the least popular group of people in the entire country after they sat around while kids were getting massacred. But it looks like Brian Kilmeade wasn't having it. He was not having it. So this is a really tense and heated back and forth on Fox News. Let's take a look.
And I told DPS this yesterday when I was going back with my sources. You know, they aren't great PR people when it comes to explaining from a human aspect on what's going on. There's a lot of law enforcement talk, but they don't know how to communicate to the average day public.
No, they lied. It's got nothing to do with bad communication skills. It has to do with they lied, and they lied again, and they lied again, and they didn't do their jobs. And now there's accountability. And there are consequences for that, and everybody in the country is mad at them, except apparently you.
And so I had to ask multiple questions to actually try to get some sort of picture that I could understand. The one thing I will say, and this is what I pushed back yesterday when we were on air, that what is the pressing issue is, did law enforcement want to go in? And the answer is yes.
That's not the pressing issue. The pressing issue is not, did they want to go in? The pressing issue is, did they go in? It's not about the thought. It's not about the thought that matters. It's about the action. It's like saying, oh, hey, honey, I'm sorry I didn't buy you an anniversary gift, but I thought about it a lot. Does that count, bitch? No, not even close. You didn't buy the gift. You didn't actually do anything. There was no action to back up the thought. So the thought is meaningless. If anything, it's worse than that. Because it's, you know what the right thing is, but you didn't do it. So what are you talking about? This guy is simply regurgitating the propaganda from the police department. He's regurgitating propaganda. Whatever they tell him, he's running with. And he's not being skeptical. He's not questioning them. He's not saying, well, hold on, that doesn't really make sense. He's just going with it. Did they want to go in? Well, they told me they wanted to go in. But they didn't go in. They sat there for an hour as kids were getting murdered and calling 911.
As I continue to say, their own children are in that building.
And they got out a lot of their own children. But the classroom that had the mass shooter in it, they didn't storm that room now, did they?
I think what the disconnect is, and I think it's important to note this, there were as those parents were outside, there were law enforcement that were in that building. The two officers that we're talking about were injured, and then they did not.
By the way, that's not even verified now. That could have been one of the many things they lied about. Oh, our officers sustained injuries. Well, then there was a follow-up where they were like, thankfully there were no life-threatening injuries. Where's the evidence? Where's the pictures? What are the injuries? Let's talk about it a little bit. That might even be a lie. And it's their fault anyway that we even have to question this because they lied so many other times that we can't just take this at face value either.
First of all, they didn't know what...
The shooter was outside the building for 12 minutes before he went in. Shooting. How's that for a new update? He wasn't stopped. Then he got in, and they left him in there for an hour.
Where the gunfire was coming from. Secondly, when they finally figured out where the gunman was, he was essentially on lockdown, and it almost turned into basically a hostage situation.
It 100% was not a hostage situation. A hostage situation is, hey, I have all these people, you need to give me X for me to release them. You need to give me money, you need to give me whatever, fill in the blank, for me to release them. That's a hostage situation. This is a guy who already shot his grandma in the face, shot outside the school for 12 minutes, and went in there and started firing. There's no indication whatsoever it's a hostage situation. In fact, quite the opposite. It's a mass shooter. It is an indiscriminate killer. It wasn't a hostage situation. That's their excuse for why they didn't go into the room when he was killing kids and the kids were calling 911. Unbelievable.
So you have two officers that are laying on that door trying to make sure that is secure. Meanwhile, you have other officers and federal law enforcement agencies that are evacuating the other rooms. They're on lockdown on that one room. Now, I understand people watch movies and all that. There is no way in any situation, and I've been through numerous active shooter situations, that you just go all guns blazing into the room when you have hostages.
That's what eventually took him out, and it had to be a Customs and Border Patrol agent, and not the police. A Customs and Border Patrol agent defied the orders of the police, got somebody to unlock the classroom door, and went in and fired and killed him. Oh, that's not how it works. That's literally exactly how it worked, and it should have worked like that from minute number 1. Shouldn't have to wait an hour to get that conclusion. This is what you signed up for. What's all the tactical gear for? What's all the military equipment for? You can't be decked out in gear of war, and then the second there's a war, you run and hide.
In that room. And I think that is the disconnect about the 45 minutes. Did law enforcement go into a full retreat? No, they did not. You still had...
Yes, they did. They sat around for an hour, holding parents back, tasing some of them, arresting some of them, set up a perimeter, and sat there.
2 injured law enforcement officers sitting on that door. They were waiting for the special operations unit to get there to be able to breach that door. And even...
Yeah, just gotta wait. That's it. Just wait. Just wait. Yeah, there's an active shooter. Yeah, kids are dying. Yeah, they're calling 911 and saying, please come help us right now. But they had to wait because they were decked out in tactical gear, but the SWAT team had more tactical gear. So let's just wait for an hour. Does he not realize how insane this sounds?
Even when they breached that door,
yeah,
they got injured as
Lawrence.
well.
Hey, Lawrence,
so,
couple of things.
Again,
Lawrence,
the community
I understand
members,
what you're saying.
I understand their questions, and I think it's fair. But again, the double thinking of that moment, I don't think it's fair at all.
Oh, it's beyond fair. It is beyond fair. Thinking is the least of it. They should already be fired. They should be brought up on charges. And even you lost Brian Kilmeade with your dumb argument. This guy's the king of stupid, and even he can see through what you're saying. Watch.
Oh, the thing is, if the attack unit is there early, they do go in right away. They do get the keys rather than blow open the door because it is fortified, as you brought up yesterday, and it is harder to get through, as you mentioned, Pete. They didn't have the training to get through. And the one thing to keep in mind, although the shooting stopped, and that's a fine answer, the kids were bleeding. So the sooner you get in there, who knows what an EMT could have been able to do had they got in there quicker. And they're not trained, essentially, to handle this. And there's no excuse to leave that back door open. And there's no excuse to come out with some fable that they were engaged by a resource officer that was armed, when that is flat-out fiction.
That's the other thing. In the initial reports, it was claimed, and I ran with this too, because a bunch of different news outlets seemed to verify it, that there was a security guard at the school who was engaging with the guy before he went in. Turns out that was totally made up. That was one of a number of lies the police department told. Like, from the very beginning, they've only been trying to protect their asses. That's it. That's it. They're not interested in the truth. They weren't interested in protecting and serving. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, where you even lose people like Brian Kilmeade.
That's not bad communication. That is a lie.
Yup.
Again, and I pushed back on DPS immediately about that story that came out there. No one seems to understand where that story came from. But as I said yesterday...
Because it's a lie. Because it's a lie. Like many of the other lies that they're telling that you can't see through, or you're choosing not to see through.
Yesterday on air, the Texas Rangers had yet to interview those police officers on the ground. So anything that was going about those police officers was just rumor. Okay? Anybody that put a story on, I continue to say that yesterday on air. Mm-hmm. They had not interviewed those law enforcement officers on the ground. Listen, part of the problem that's going on right now, people want answers, and so there's leaks of what's going on. The official investigation it's not complete. Mm-hmm. The preliminary interview...
Who's going to do the official investigation? See, this is the kind of guy who would accept an official investigation of the Uvalde Police Department by the Uvalde Police Department. He'd be like, look, these are the conclusions. So I don't want to hear what you have to say. You know, if the feds get involved, maybe that's slightly different. They said the Texas Rangers might get involved. Maybe that's slightly different. But how many times have we seen this, like, internal investigation? It's like, well, I'm not going to trust. Like, would you trust a Wall Street CEO who turns around and says, we're going to investigate our own company to see if there's any CEO malfeasance? It's like, no. There's a massive conflict of interest. But this is the kind of guy who would uncritically report that because he's doing it already. With whatever the cops say, he's running with that narrative and he's not questioning them.
News were not complete when I went on air yesterday. So, again, it's just hearsay at this point.
The reason why he's flipping out is because he was defending the police department hard the day before. That's what he did. And so now he's trying to cover his ass. Lawrence Jones did this whole thing smugly going after everybody who was questioning the police and defending them. And now it turns out like 98% of the country it has turned on the cops because clearly they lied. Clearly they didn't do their job. And now he's trying to save face. And again, even Brian Kilmeade can't help you clean it up. And Brian Kilmeade, this is the first time I've ever seen him, defect from the protect the police and defend the police narrative. So they messed up when even he's turning on you. So anyway, there you have it. Lawrence Jones, give it up, man. Say, I was wrong. The cops messed up. Because everybody in the country believes that because it's the truth. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.